From messy homes to holy habits, today we are talking all about keeping a house clean as a Christian. And we're also going to be throwing in our unique perspective as a couple because it definitely is a partnership and making sure that that happens.
And Sela, this is a wide range topic that a lot of Americans extremely value. Actually, statistics show that 81% of Americans say cleaning your home and maintaining the cleanliness of your home is very important. But here's the crazy statistic. Only a small percentage of 43% actually have the discipline and the consistency to keep it home. And that's not the only thing. 70% of people see cleaning as a hassle, but a necessity. So we're talking to a lot of people here today that want to clean their home, but maybe lack that discipline. How are we going to help them in this episode?
Yes, that is the question that we're answering today. Not just, hey, it's good to clean your house. Hey, here's some stats for you, but really the practical application of how to get it done. You guys know that this podcast is very practical application because it feels like a lot of times we know what to do, or at least what the right thing is to do, but we don't actually know how to do it. And a lot of times we just have to learn from others who have walked before us and or are good at things naturally and pick up those habits that they have so that we can use those for our own selves and for our own homes.
And see, that's the great thing is there's a thing called discipline that we can actually develop over time and develop the skills necessary to keep a house clean. And there's people who struggle with that. I mean, like we said, 81% see the value in keeping your home clean. Another interesting statistic is that the average American cleans their house only one time a month. One time a month. That is crazy. So that's what this whole podcast is going to be about. We're going to give you guys practical tips, and we're going to share some interesting or more interesting statistics, kind of help you guys develop those skills. Maybe you're already really good at cleaning your home. Maybe you grew up in a family that cleaned up consistently, but now you have kids, now you have a husband, now you have a wife. Oh, in my case, it's the husband that's dirty and messy and needs to declutter and learn the skills. But the great thing is there's always that practical aspect of discipline that we can learn over time. And like Sela said, learn from people who have gone before us.
Right, exactly. Another interesting statistic that we thought would be just good to hear, good to share, is according to the National Sleep Foundation, you actually get a better night's sleep when you go to bed in a clean room. And it may seem like a small feat, for example, to make your bed in the morning, but it actually shows to improve your overall mental health and your sleep. And that's just one of the many benefits. As we said, a lot of people want to be clean but don't know how to, I think is more what it is than maybe more being lazy. It's more just how the heck do I do it with my crazy schedule? But we all know inherently that it's better for our mental health. It's better for our family's health overall. And we are more at peace in a clean, orderly, organized, decluttered home. We just are. By nature, we are. And the American consumerism that we have just brought upon ourselves through the amount of money we all have and make compared to other countries in the world, being able to buy a lot of things all the time, guilty, that just adds to almost the chaos of the home. And so we really do want to get into some of these really nitty-gritty practical things about how to make that an easier thing to do and achieve and just to have a clean house. But the most important thing we want to talk about before we even dig into some of that is that there is a difference between being messy and being dirty. And we really need to distinguish this because if we don't, we may think that a dirty house is an excuse, and someone may say, well, I have kids, my house is just dirty. Well, there's a difference between dirty and there's a difference between messy. And I think that we should overall strive to have a non-dirty home. Maybe it won't always be clean, maybe it'd be a little bit messy, but dirty, it's a different thing. So we wanted to kind of walk through some practical examples of how can you know if you have a messy or a dirty home. And then, we can work on all of those things, messy and dirty, but especially dirty because it can have some things that can be harmful even for your physical health.
Yeah, Sela, the way I would probably describe dirty is crumbs all over the countertops, crumbs all over the floor when you're walking and you just feel that dirt on your feet, like, that nasty feeling. Toothpaste smeared in the bathrooms, maybe dirty laundry, crusted towels, just things that when you walk into an environment, you're like, oh, like you feel like the creepy crawlies all over you. I mean, that's how I would describe dirty.
Yeah, maybe smells. And yeah, I mean, we are having a smell issue right now because the last people that lived in our house had 4 cats in one litter box in a small bathroom. and it still reeks in there. And I don't know that they changed it all the time. And so that's probably why, because I think you can have a nice smelling home with a litter box. You just have to clean it out. So anyway, with that said, the smells can really make a difference for dirty. And like you said, just that like overall, ooh, this is like kind of dirty in here, you know? And I don't know. I know we struggle a lot with bugs here in the South. So if you have bugs in your house, you know, it may be just because where you live. But yeah, I mean, if you have like colonies of ants and stuff, there might be quite a few food items left out on the floor. That is kind of dirt or dirty, I would say. But messy is a lot different. And I think that there is a little bit more grace in the area of messy based on the season that you're in. And so we obviously, I think that, I mean, just shooting to the highest standard possible, I think it would be great to, even in a hard season with little kids, to not even really struggle with a messy house, because I do think it's possible to not. But at the very least, there are seasons in life where you can't even avoid the mess. Like, let's say postpartum, you know, you just had a baby. And so what is messy? Let me just list off some of the things we thought of. But toys on the floor, beds unmade, clutter on the counters, laundry baskets full, closets full of stuff not organized. This isn't gross. This is more just like a little bit chaotic, a tiny bit chaotic. It may be the season that you're in. Like I said, postpartum is a good example, but I still think that it's attainable to have a clean house, not a messy house even, but a clean house with little kids, because we have little kids in our house, and I would say that the house is generally clean and organized. I think it's possible, but I also feel like it depends on the personalities and the preferences of the home, don't you think? Because we have a preference of it always being clean, but some others that we know, like, they want it to be clean in the sense it's not dirty, but mess is okay with them. A little bit of mess is okay with them, and that's just their personality. That's their family's culture, so to speak. So there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with beds unmade. It's just, I think today we're talking about having a clean house. So let's not just, you know, strive for the mess. Let's strive for the clean. That's what we're going to talk about today anyway. So I think we all would want to hopefully have a cleaner house, even if we were okay with a little bit of mess.
Yeah. And again, like you're saying, it ultimately depends on the personalities and the relationship dynamic, which between you and your spouse, you're going to have to figure out what you guys desire. If your goal is to have a non-dirty house or a non-messy house, I mean, this is a great place to start. We're going to talk about the discipline of developing that ability to keep your house from being dirty. Or if your desire to go to the next step further, to have absolutely no mess and to not make that excuse. That's usually the first step. Realize that you make excuses, and that's okay. That's a good first step, to start realizing, okay, I'm making an excuse. It's my kids. It's that blame shift. Like, no, I'm going to work as a family, as a unit, and to keep this house clean. Now, there is a difference, though, between messy and excessively messy. And excessively messy, we would probably define as a trail through the house just to get through the house, like a trail from the front door to get through what was the living room, but now is just a pile of mountain toys.
And it's not necessarily dirty, right?
No.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a dirty space to be an incredibly messy space. So, yeah, there is a line. It's almost like the classic hoarder house where you just have stacks and stacks of stuff. Like, that's not necessarily always dirty, although a lot of times it can be, but it's very, very messy. Like, if you can't easily walk into a room, that's, I think, a problem.
Sometimes the playroom can get to that level where it's just piles of toys that have never been put away.
Right.
Maybe a Toy Story Woody toy that's been underneath the pile for the past 5 years. Like, oh, where'd Woody go?
Yeah.
It's come to life. No, it's just buried under trash.
Yeah. And the playroom is an excellent example because it's so easy to accumulate a ton of toys for the kids and then not donate them and end up with a ton of stuff. We have stuff downstairs that we need to donate, in fact. But let's go ahead and get into some of the practical things that we feel like would be helpful for our listeners to start doing, implementing slowly. I think the very first thing that is way, 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 way underappreciated is somebody waking up and making their bed in the morning. And might I add, making your kids' beds if they're unable, or having your kids make their beds. We have been implementing bed making, I think, since we've been married. And even when we had our little kids, we still are making their bed. And we had our foster kids for a while. They were making their own bed. It's a very easy 3-minute task that, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, the National Sleep Foundation found a clean room led to better sleep. And so this is an immediate way that you can ensure that when you walk into your room at night, it's restful in there, and it's restful for your children. And it's just a simple 3 minutes that can really set the tone for the day on how you're going to take care of your home for the entire day.
Yeah, and that's a skill or a discipline I did not do growing up. And it was my, I mean, my bed was always messy, and I would be justified as I'm going to come back into it. I don't need to make
Me
the
too,
bed.
by the way. Yeah,
Yeah,
me
I
too.
know it was, but until we got married, and I was still not doing it. So it took a while for us to convince me to do it. But I mean, now over the years, 6 years later, I'm doing it consistently. Sometimes I forget, especially when I was working nights. That was hard because I mean, you would sleep, and then I would come home, and then I would sleep and
Right.
be like, "Ah, she's gonna go to sleep in like 3 hours. Do we really have to make the bed?" But we still did it because
Yeah.
it helped me mentally get ready for the day. And I believe that's a great first step for disciplinary sake, is taking that first step that you could do consistently every day. Every person can make their bed. It's just a quick 2 minute task, but it prepared me mentally to go ahead of the day and be successful in the day, quote unquote.
Right. And as you go through the day, this is our next little tip or side note. As you go through the day, there's really two different ways that you can clean your house throughout the day. So you made your bed, you set the tone, you're doing great, you feel good, you're like, yes, it's nice in here. Let's go downstairs and let's tackle the day. There's two different ways that I've noticed that people will clean their house throughout the day. Number one, you have somebody that cleans as they go. And then number two, you have somebody that cleans before bed. Or maybe they have two cleans a day generally, where they do a quick cleanup twice a day. I have noticed that that really is kind of how people prefer it to go. And for me, what I can speak on is I like to clean as I go. And so whenever I am in a space, I do not leave the space until the space is clean. And I really consider my kitchen as my office as a stay-at-home mom. I'm a working mom too, but a stay-at-home mom as well. I really consider my kitchen my office. And so when we make breakfast, we walk downstairs, make breakfast, we make it, and then I'm cleaning the entire thing up and putting all of the dishes away. And then we're going to our next activity. If we're going to leave the house and go to the library, the whole house is getting cleaned up and the toys are getting put away. So that way, when we come walk back through the door for lunch, everything's clean and I can put the kids easily down for quiet time. Same for lunch, same thing. And then during quiet time, everything's clean. The kids wake up. And I'm kind of walking you guys through my day of how I do it. But the kids wake up. They're coming downstairs. They make a little bit of a mess. It's okay to have some mess. I'm not saying it's literally impossible for you not to have a mess. I mean, your kids have to play. But as we're going on to the next activity, whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's eating or going outside, the whole house is getting cleaned as we go. And especially in the kitchen, that is always generally clean unless we are using it for the specific purpose of eating. That's how I do it throughout my day. So the mess doesn't pile up and get unmanageable. But there are women that I've seen that prefer to not do that as much, and they'd rather do one or two big cleans a day. Like the kids can leave all their toys out all day long, and then they're just going to, before bed, the husband and them are going to pick up all the toys and put them away. They're going to sleep. The house is clean. They wake up to a clean house. And then it just kind of, over the course of the day, kind of, goes down into the point where it's messy and then they clean it up. That's also fine. I think it depends on personality preference. And that's mine, I would say. And I know I just talked a lot. I don't know if you have thoughts, but I just wanted to explain that because I've seen it for different women managing their home.
And it's not an easy task by any means. I mean, Judah and Rosie don't, I mean, Rosie's really enjoying cleaning, but Judah, it's a fight every time. So don't mistakenly think that it's going to be an easy battle. Your kids are probably going to hate the process. I mean, Judah complains every single time, and we do it every single day. So it's not like the kids all of a sudden are like, oh, they have adapted and we're spotless all the time because the kids love cleaning and we've developed that discipline. No, it's a battle. It's a battle every single week. But there is a powerful aspect to it because scientifically, the part of the brain where our eyes are sat in the occipital lobes in our brain, they can become overloaded with sensory stuff. When you're constantly cleaning your house, you're reducing that sensory overload and ultimately reducing the overload on your brain. Because, I mean, a lot of people that you meet that are typically more messy and they have a lot of clutter, they're typically, I'm saying typically because it's not always the case, a little bit more anxious. There's a little bit more chaos in the house. Scientifically, it's been proven that when you have a clean sensory environment, you're actually reducing the overload on your brain. So scientifically, if developing this discipline is so vital for that reason. But again, this discipline is hard. It's still hard for me today. Sometimes I get annoyed. I'm like, oh, we have to clean the house again. There's times where we want to go walk after dinner and it's getting dark, but we've developed that discipline, especially you. I would say you're way better than this at me. I mean, I've been going to work for the past 6 years since we've been married, so I haven't been as invested as you, but it's definitely a lot harder to think about it and do it. But I know as a husband, my responsibility is to serve my wife, as the Bible tells us to do in Ephesians, and the practical aspects of marriage is to serve my wife and to be there for her and to encourage her, and also to make sure she's not stumbling in the area of making her angry,
Getting frustrated.
That I'm messy. But again, it's a partnership, and it's ultimately up to you and your spouse. Like, what do you guys want in your relationship? If one spouse wants it clean, a lot of times you're going to have to die to yourself and say, okay, I'm going to do what my wife does. Why? Because I love her and I want to serve her as Christ has loved the church. And so that is our responsibility, men. And maybe women, the husband wants the house clean, and you could talk more about that. A lot of times a husband wants to come home to clean house, but you're like, oh man, I don't want to clean the house. You're not here with the kids all day. There's an aspect of dying to yourself and serving your spouse in that regard, because it's a partnership, and we're here to not only lead the example for our children and show them, hey, this is how our relationship dynamic is, but there's something more powerful, is that our relationship and our marriage is supposed to be a picture of God's love with the church. And what would Jesus do for the church? He would serve them.
Right. That's such a good point. And I, of course, would love to address the weaknesses I have in this area, because you're saying I'm not naturally clean. Well, I'm the one that gets naturally frustrated easily, very easily. So I will definitely just be totally bluntly honest about my own current struggles in this area. But I did just want to say, you brought up a good point. This is a selfless act to clean your house for your family. It's not just for you. If you're a single adult, then maybe that would be a little bit different. It's more about discipline. It's more about maturity. But if you've got a family in your home, this is an act of service that you're doing for them. And I remember once, so our dynamic, you guys might already know it. Arby works outside of the home, and I work from home. I would say part-time-ish, sometimes full-time. And it just always means so much to me. If I ever have a full work day, Arby lets me go up to the office and work, and I come down, and has the whole house clean and the kids are fed. It means so much to me when that is the case. And I didn't ever really get that perspective until I started working from home, because I was just always on the end of, I'm with the kids all day, I'm tired. But since I've realized how nice that is, I've really tried to. It's not always possible because his work schedule is weird and he gets off early or he gets off late. I really have tried to make sure that when you come home from work, the house is clean and dinner's ready. I don't think that it's a legalistic thing where it's like, if you don't do that, you're a bad wife. No, no, no. I'm just more feeling like the best blessing for you is to come home to a clean house and a hot meal. That is just a blessing that I can give to you, even throughout my day with the kids. And again, it's not always possible. I've been in my first trimester. Some of you guys may know, saw my announcement that we're actually expecting our third. Mm-hmm. And so there were a lot of days I was laying on the couch sick when Arby was coming home and we were trying to figure out dinner. But with that said, when I am feeling well, that is something that I really enjoy doing and blessing you with, because you've done it for me before. And I just really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've been doing it majority of our marriage, and I absolutely love it when there's a clean home. And there's an aspect of coming home and it's a safe, clean place that really brings peace to the home. And I mean, think about the most peaceful home you've ever been into. Like, just think of that environment. It was, and probably most likely, it was a very clean home. Both spouses were probably very mature Christians. I'm not claiming that we're mature in any ways, but think about the most peaceful, most like Holy Spirit filled home you've ever been to. It was most likely a really clean home.
Right.
And that couple most likely had a very, very mature outlook on life. And they were really probably clean people. I think of Ivan and Sarah's house, or Sean and Allison's house.
They're our friends, yeah.
Our friends, they made a really big impact in our lives, and both of them had a very clean home. They're very organized, and they had such a peaceful place, and we wanted to mimic that. And
right.
Those people really had a big impact on our lives.
Yeah, and growing up, I remember before all the chaos happened with my family, my mom used to do a little drill, Daddy's coming home from work, everybody. He's coming home. It's a big deal. She'd make this big deal about it. And then she would have everybody do a crazy fast clean. And we'd all run around, be super excited. Daddy's coming home. Daddy's coming home. The whole house was clean. Dinner was ready to go. And my dad would walk through the door. And instead of, coming into a house full of toys everywhere, we had 8 kids in the family growing up. He would walk into a bunch of hugs from all the kids and, hey guys, let's go sit down. And mom's bringing out her hot roast on a Sunday or I don't know, Monday. She always did roast. And we would sit down and have our family dinner. And I remember that even as a kid, that kind of impression, like daddy's coming home. And some of you guys work, both of you guys work. So hopefully before you guys leave for work, the house is all clean and you both are having that experience where you're coming home to a clean home because nobody's been there all day and you can walk in and kind of breathe a sigh of relief. It's clean in here, But I guess I'm kind of speaking more to the stay-at-home moms, the working from home moms. I think that this is something that is a really big blessing you can give your husband. It's not a necessity. It doesn't mean you're a bad wife if you don't, but it's more about selflessly serving them. And I just feel like it makes such a sweet time and memory. And it also teaches the kids a little bit of respect for dad coming home. He just had a long day. We respect that. And of course we did too as the mom, but we're teaching our kids respect. We're teaching them an honor for daddy coming home. And I feel like that's a really cool thing to teach your kids too. I know it impacted me as a kid so much so that I'm doing it now.
Yeah, and think about a son's perspective. Like, a lot of times most sons want to marry their mom, right? I mean, dude always says, I'm going to marry you, mommy. It's like, that's the example you want to leave your son. It's like, this is the standard that I want my son to marry to. Not saying marry me, but you know what I mean? Just like, this is the type of woman I want to leave an example for my son. And same for daughters. Like, man, this is the type of mom I want to be when I grow up. And so I want to serve my husband. I want to love him. And that's what I want to be like mommy when I grow up. I mean, that's every mom's dream, wouldn't you say? And same for every son's dream. Like, oh man, I mean, as a parent, I want my son to marry somebody like my wife, somebody that serves her husband in that regard. And I'm super grateful. So thank you, Sela, for keeping the house clean.
Oh, thanks. Well, let me just talk about my weaknesses then, because I feel like it sounds like I've got it all together. And I certainly don't, because unfortunately, my daughter does mimic something that I do. She's only 1.5. Okay. That's how much this is happening. She does mimic something I do that is directly related to cleaning, okay? Because if mom is ever upset about something in the house, it's probably because there's a mess. Let's just be honest. 9 times out of 10. And of course, being pregnant, I'm not trying to blame my pregnancy. We're so blessed by the baby. Lots of hormones going on, so it's almost been elevated lately. And so my daughter, she's 18 months old, and she's been walking around the house, and if something doesn't go her way, like her toy, she can't get it, or I don't know, something's wrong, she always goes, and who does that in the house? It's me. And I do that when things are out of place because I'm a little bit type A. I didn't always used to be, by the way. I was very messy, very messy. I actually had my roommate sit me down in college one day and say, Sela, it is incredibly hard to share a dorm with you because you are so messy. And a lot of times you're almost gross with the things that you're leaving behind on the floor, my dirty laundry and things like that. They're like, you've got to change this because we are having a hard time living with you. So this was not something that I naturally cared about or something that I was naturally good at. The Lord helped and trained me in it. But now I'm almost on the opposite side where I'm a little too uptight about it sometimes. And I get super frustrated. And of course, I can get super annoyed at nearly everybody in the house. What does that practically look like? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of an example like, this house is never clean, or
no, waking up with the crumbs on the floor. Because I wake up at 5 a.m. every day and I make breakfast and I make an elaborate breakfast. And sometimes, I mean, I'm not going to pull out the vacuum at 5:45 when I leave for work. So you sometimes come home and wake up and go downstairs and there's crumbs on the floor.
Well, I'll tell you what's happening when you're not there and you're at work. I'm stepping on the crumbs and I'm like, he did it again. And then Judah's over there like, oh, daddy left the crumbs on the floor again, and mind you, I'm like chipper smiley here, right? Like it doesn't look like it's that mad, but I'm actually mad sometimes. And it's fine. This is more of a reflection on me, of course, because you can't turn the vacuum on that early. But I think that almost always there's someone like this in the relationship where maybe they are more, I don't know, strict on cleaning or type A. And then there's somebody else in the relationship who's a little bit less so on that regard.
Because I don't see the crumbs. It doesn't bother me. Like you tell me there's a bunch of crumbs on the countertop. I'm like, where? I don't see it. What are you talking about? Like men have the ability to not even think about it. Their brains don't see anything. But then women have the super sense, like, well, what's that crumb doing there? It's like, what? Well, it's nothing.
It's true. I really don't think that guys
No,
see it a lot of
I
times.
see it all the time
But
on Facebook.
but I don't want it on Facebook.
Yeah, I know. Facebook, I see people say that. Like, I don't know where the husbands can't see squat.
Yeah, that's so true. I literally don't think that. I mean, it's not always the guys. So I don't want to say that. There are some guys that are more like me than there are guys like you. But most of the time this is how it works, and I literally don't think that guys see it. And so there has to be grace for that, right? And I have to remind myself that that grace needs to exist. That it's an opportunity for me to be patient, and it's an opportunity for, I don't know why I'm struggling with the word opportunity, but it's an opportunity for me to breathe in that moment and to let things go and to selflessly serve RV or anyone in the house when things aren't going my way. And I also wanted to add that a lot of times what happens with mess, especially if it's like happening a lot, reoccurring, stuff that I already had mentioned, it kind of bottles up inside of me and I get really bitter. And then one day I just kind of explode on you. And it's not this nice, calm conversation. It's like you never do anything around here and it's always me. And it's like, my voice is raised. I mean, I am not an example of Christ in that moment. And when we have successfully had a good conversation about it, it's always been so much better. And I find that like sitting down and talking when we have done this, where I'm saying, hey, I'm really overwhelmed. Here's all the things I have on my plate. I really need you to help me start doing 50-50 with the laundry. This was a recent conversation that we had. And you've been actively trying to help me with that. Now, I will say that when we have conversations, whether they're explosive, which is not ideal, or whether they're nice and calm and planned out, it is something that is a reoccurring conversation. Because it's not natural for you to remember, I have to remind you more so. And I'm trying to find ways to not be, number one, explosive, but also not naggy and not annoying. So I think this is a tension that a lot of women feel. And the most important thing that we all need to do is just pray for God to give us a selfless, patient heart and for wisdom on how to navigate these conversations. I'm not somebody that's figured this out yet. This is a big struggle for me. My temper is a big struggle for me. You guys may not think that, like off just meeting me, but I do have a temper and I'm working on it. And so with that said, I really I know that that's for me what the Holy Spirit's calling me to do when I'm struggling with that weakness that I have.
And that's what marriage is. It is refining the rough edges and the rubbing and the friction. And that's what ultimately marriage is for, is to edify us to become more like Jesus. And that's such a good point. I mean, it's definitely something that usually, I mean, I struggle with the temperament sometimes too. And I think our kids do too. So it's an active struggle that we all struggle with.
It is true that like we both have a little bit of the same struggle, and so our kids do too, and they're feisty.
Yeah, they're
and
feisty.
and it's maybe learned behavior, maybe also personality traits, but we don't want that for them.
No.
So we're both figuring out how to calm ourselves down, and it's hard to learn how to do. There's only one aspect of gentle parenting that I like. The rest of it I don't like, and that is when a child's frustrated, teaching them to breathe, because that is a very effective way to bring your heart rate down and to help you not lash out in anger. But otherwise, I don't like anything else. Biblical parenting, not gentle parenting. But that is one good thing that is being taught to kids. And that I think is what we need to be doing. And when we're breathing, we're not meditating on calmness. We're meditating on the Holy Spirit and asking Him for help.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. But now transitioning back into the discipline aspect of continually keeping the house clean, especially since that's your specialty, what should the person do?
Yeah, well, like I had said, this wasn't always a skill I had. And I actually learned a lot from other people. So with that being said, I had a few things that just kind of came to mind of how I took myself, type B, and turned me into almost like a type A. Not that one is better than the other, but just with the cleaning aspect, trying to become more clean. I really have completely 180 switched. And so I had a few things I thought would be maybe something you've never thought of before of trying to do to get yourself to be better with managing your home. I'm talking as a woman to the ladies, but guys could take this into account as well. I think in general, women usually care more about the home management and usually are inclined to care more about this topic than men. So this is just going to be very lady heavy, but a guy could do it too. I don't know if they could apply as easily though. God made us nurturing. He made us caretakers. That's our biological drive. And so usually we're the ones that are creating the atmosphere in the home. Now, with that said, my very first thing that I would advise somebody to do, and it might sound a little bit weird, but if you have somebody in your life, maybe at church, a woman that's full of years and wisdom, and she has a clean house, I seriously think one of the best things that you could do is you could ask her, and maybe your husband can watch the kids so you can go do this alone. Ask her if you can come over to her house and watch her clean and follow her around as she gives you tips on what she does. Because you will learn so much by visually watching somebody. And that's what happened to me. So we had an injury where RV had to stop working. It brought huge financial stress on our family. So we ended up moving in with our friends. And one of my closest friends in the world, her name is Allison. She has the cleanest house ever. And I moved into her house, and I just by nature was watching her. I wanted to make sure we weren't, of course, a burden in the home. So I wanted to keep the house clean, do whatever she needed. And I noticed things about what she would do that were just almost like, no duh, we do that, but we hadn't implemented it before. And what I watched over the course of 7 months of living with them is that she would never leave a space unclean. She would always wipe it down. She would always put the things away. She would always organize it. Like it didn't seem like it was a ton of work because it was so seamlessly happening wherever she went. If she went into the bathroom to put something away, she noticed there was something on the countertop, like a smear. She'd grab something really quick and wipe it down. And just watching that, following her example and trying to, hopefully please her and be easy to live with since we were living with them, that made me really get those habits ingrained in my head. And if you have the ability to go to somebody in your church and just ask them questions, go to their house for the morning and learn, and they can show you exactly what they do, I think that can be a very powerful tool for visual learners.
Or be like our situation, men, fracture your collarbone and move in with your best friends at the time. But no, it really did, because it changed my life too, because I didn't want to be a burden to Sean and Allison. They were fantastic for inviting us in, and it took a while for us to remember the dish situation? It took us a while to figure out the specific way she wanted to do her dishes and everything specifically, and now we do the same things.
Because it made sense.
Yeah,
like at first when we moved in and there were things that she had in order, we were like, oh, like, okay, well, that's cool. But now it's like, no, it makes sense to organize your dishes in that way. No, it makes sense to clean it in that way. So we learned so much through her example.
And we didn't know any better. Like our methods weren't very successful.
Right.
we were just learning as we went. But then somebody who was much more mature showed us the way. And now we still live by that path, quote unquote, and so we could show it to our kids and hopefully influence other people in the future.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is like learning from someone whose methods are successful, who you've noticed that their house is very clean, learning from them. And also if they're older and they're out of the little kids phase or the kids phase, like talk to them about how they did it while they had kids in the house, because that's also very hard to do. Maybe you could find somebody that's your age who has a clean home and you could go over to their house for the day and learn from them. And I guarantee you, if somebody approaches you and asks you, hey, can I come over and learn from you? They will be so honored and just like, of course you can, like they would love to help you, so it'll be an honor. It'll be a compliment. And I don't think they'll turn you down. I really don't. So along with that, I also noticed when I was living with Allison that she would have one big clean every week where and this is not something that I replicate exactly, just because I've learned my own rhythms, but she would just deep clean the house one day a week. And for her, what that looked like, and it doesn't look the same for me, but for her, what that looked like was all the laundry in one day. A lot of times she would vacuum or mop the house in the one day. She would order the groceries, prep them, put them away during that day. And she did, I would say, like 4 or 5 hours of work that would set herself up so she didn't have as much to do throughout the rest of the week. And so that's exactly what I do, only I've morphed it a little bit for me because I actually prefer to do the laundry regularly each day because it then doesn't end up being a massive amount. But what that has looked like for me now, so maybe just a couple different ideas for you guys, is I actually take one room each week and deep clean it, usually on Wednesdays. So I'll deep clean one room. I have the living room, top to bottom, scrub the windows, scrub the floor, scrub the baseboards, take apart the couch cushions. And I do that in every room. I pick a room in the house and I go and deep clean it. And it really has just generally kept our home deeply clean. On top of just maintaining the cleanliness of the home, it keeps it deeply clean. So having one big clean day a week, you don't have to do what I do. You don't have to do what Allison does, but whatever that deep clean stuff is, like deep cleaning the bathrooms and whatever it is for you, try to get that done one day a week. Set aside, it doesn't have to be 5 hours or anything, maybe 1-2 hours where you're just deep cleaning the house. That will make sure that the mess or the dirt doesn't become overwhelming in your home.
You know what I've really found that really helps us is having a cordless vacuum that's battery operated and continuously vacuuming in the house. I mean, it has completely changed the way our floors feel and the way our house looks is cleaning and vacuuming after every single time we eat, after every single time somebody walks in, and now we have the vacuum. It's just handily right near the kitchen, ready to go. It's something that my cousin did. He had a vacuum right in his kitchen. You just pull it right off and vacuum after every single meal, and it kept the house so clean, and it was so convenient. You can buy easily. We spent $100 on our Heart vacuum from Walmart.
Right.
It's a fantastic vacuum. Recharges super easy, and it's so convenient, and it just helps keep the house clean.
Yeah, shameless plug for our vacuum. I actually just bought it for my sister for her wedding gift because she had this little corded vacuum that was $30, and I was like, "Girl, you need that. You need my Heart vacuum."
Mm-hmm.
So
it's the most used item in our house.
It's the most used cleaning item in our house. And this is a little bit of a side note from what we were talking about, but it is an important note, and I'm glad you mentioned it because we probably would have forgot to say it. Get yourself a cordless vacuum. If you don't have one, get one, you guys. Mm-hmm. If you have a struggle with dirt on your floor, crumbs on your floor, this is literally a lifesaver. We use that thing all the time, and it's so awesome. Well, okay, that was the tiny little jump off, which is totally fine. We needed to say that. But I also wanted to list out some of our rules in our house that have helped us really create a clean family culture. These are rules that we noticed in Allison's home and are rules that we just now live by. So I wanted to list off some of our quote unquote rules for the house. And I would say we never ever negate from these rules because they're so ingrained in us now. And even when our foster kids came into our home, they very quickly adapted to these rules. Mm-hmm. So if you add in rules like this to your house and you're on it and you're like, hey, don't forget to take off your shoes. Hey, don't forget to take off your shoes. They will eventually get it. It might take a couple weeks, if you have older kids, but for our foster kids, they did eventually get it. So here's our house rules that are very practical. So no matter what, we go to sleep with a clean house. We do not have dishes in the sink. Everything is wiped down. Crumbs are off the floor with our cordless vacuum. All the toys are put away. Everything is folded, not maybe laundry all the time, but like everything's folded, put away, blankets that were out, the kids' toys, beds, everything is clean. So when we wake up the next day after we make our bed, right, we brought that up at the beginning, we go downstairs to a clean home and we get to make breakfast in a clean home and it resets everything. Also, we do not allow shoes in our house. And I'll talk briefly on this. I know that some people don't care about the shoes. We have little kids, so, that we have babies crawling around. We don't want to have shoes in the house. So we take our shoes off. Tracking in that dirt from outside can really add to the dirt on your floors. And so if you can implement this, this will just generally keep your floors not being really dirty. So no shoes in the house, hard rule, even guests abide by it. Actually, in Russian culture, I don't think anybody doesn't not wear shoes in the house for the most part. Everybody's home that we visited, family or otherwise that's Russian, always takes their shoes off. So this is something that I feel like is very common in Russian culture. But also, we don't leave the house. Like Arby said, when we go on a walk or if I take the kids to the library, we do not leave the house with a mess. We went to church today. Everything was cleaned up. All the toys are put away. We do not physically leave the home with a mess. So that way, when we're coming back inside the house, It's nice and clean, breath of fresh air. We can restart and do whatever it is we need to do. A lot of times we need to eat. And so if it was messy everywhere, it'd just be overwhelming to make another mess coming right back in. Like we have to go make lunch after church. So the house is clean when we leave the house. And then lastly, we have a general rule that everybody puts away what they take out. And yeah, we are kind of fighting tooth and nail sometimes with our 4-year-old because he's still learning, and we're working on that for him. But in general, we want everybody to put away what they take out. So if you take out your coat, put it on, you got to put your coat away. If you take out, I don't know, an electronic, you got to put it away. So we have spots for everything. Everything has a spot. Everything has a spot in our house. Like everything's intentional, everything's organized, except for a couple closets that we've got to work on.
My closet.
Your tools and stuff.
We don't
But
have a garage, so
it
to
is
be
harder.
fair, it's harder.
Our storage is really hard in this
Yes.
house, but everything has a place to go, and it always goes back in that place. And so we don't end up having a lot of disorganization in the places that are intentionally organized because there is a spot for all of it. So that really helps. Those are some simple house rules that we've implemented. We noticed my friend Allison had at her home, and it just in general kept things very clean.
Yeah, and all of those things are so powerful, and that's how you really develop those habits, is to have a family plan. And maybe the family plan is you guys have a chart, and each person completes this chart. The husband takes out all the trash and cleans up maybe certain rooms, cleans the bathroom. If that works for your family, do it. It doesn't really I wouldn't say it really works for us, because we always sometimes do those charts but never really follow through, or they only last for like a week and then we kind of forget about it. So do what works for your family. For us, we've kind of over the years have developed knowing what we're supposed to do, and we do it. And sometimes you have to remind me.
The reason it doesn't work for our family is because we do the clean as you go mentality.
True.
And so there's not really a need for chores when you clean as you go, if that makes sense. But when you're somebody that maybe doesn't prefer to do that and you'd rather do big cleans throughout the day, chores make a lot more sense. But like you said, we have different responsibilities. You're in charge of the outside and the trash. Mm-hmm. Those are your responsibilities, always have been, always will be. I'm mainly in charge of a lot of the general cleanliness of the home. And I used to be solely in charge of the laundry until I told you that I was overwhelmed. And now we 50-50 split the laundry and work on it together. So this is something that we adapt over time. As far as the kids go, our 4-year-old's not really old enough to do a lot. So he just helps clean up all of his mess. Our 1.5-year-old is not able to do anything. When we had foster kids, we did have chore charts, which was very helpful for them at that age. But we just haven't entered that phase of life yet, too. It could be that. So.
Yeah, but bringing up the foster kids, because I think this is really important. Our foster kids did not wear shoes coming into the house until they moved in with us.
Yeah, they had shoes in their previous home.
Yeah, exactly. So they grew up with shoes in the house. That was normal for them. So don't lose heart. Like, what am I going to do with my kids? They've been doing this for years. Habits can change. They have a 21 90-day rule or 21 66-day rule, where it says it takes 21 days to start realizing a habit, and then 66 or 60 days to fully develop a habit. And so over time, with consistency, that was the big thing that helped our foster kids, was consistency, telling them and being on top of it. Take your shoes off, take your shoes off, take your shoes off. And eventually they just naturally, with habit and discipline, always took their shoes off anytime we went into somebody's house. And it became an automatic reaction for them, and they developed that habit, and they developed the habit of cleaning up their mess. And pretty soon, once we had the foster kids, by the time they actually left our home, they were consistently cleaning the house, and that's how they developed the habit. So don't lose heart, is my point. If it takes a while for your kids to develop that habit, you just be consistent, and they will eventually turn around and change, and they'll be grateful for it. Our foster kids flourished when the house was clean. Actually, one of them said, "Wow, we really appreciate it, Sela, that the house is so clean." Like, they thrived in that environment. It helped with their anxiety, helped with their stress load. They were much calmer. And maybe that's what you're seeking for in your home. Like, there's a certain aspect as Christians we should have probably the most cleanest homes, because God calls us to be hospitable, especially if you're a leader in the church. Like, you have a responsibility to be hospitable, as 1 Timothy says, to welcome people into your home, and to have this Christ-like atmosphere filled with the Holy Spirit, just this welcoming place. And there's nothing like that besides a clean home. And so I would encourage you guys, just from our experience and our love for hosting and having people over, is there's this peace when people people come in that they claim. I mean, your mom, your biological mom, when she came over to our Tennessee house, said, "Man, your guys' house, there's just something different about it. It's so peaceful in here, and there's so much just difference in this house." And that's really what the idea and the whole point of discipline and cleaning your home is to represent Jesus and to have this Christ-like atmosphere.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I just wanted to really bring this last perspective in on this conversation because I think it's important. And I pray that the Holy Spirit can help me just say this in love and gentleness because I truly do mean it to come across in that way. But as the women in the house, we are generally the ones caring the most about the maintenance of the home and the way that the atmosphere is of the home. And so it can be really easy for us to think that whatever our standard of clean is what everybody else abides to. And this can be true for someone that's hyper worried about it, like me, where I need to kind of relax a little bit. But it can also be true of somebody who isn't maybe as clean and maybe needs to work on it, but they are like, no, this is how much I like the house to be clean. I'm the mom. This is fine. Kids are messy. Kids are dirty. It is what it is. And let me give you an example of what I mean specifically. So you may think to yourself, my standard of clean is good, right? But if your spouse comes to you and says, hey, honey, I'd really appreciate it if the house was cleaner, or I'd love to come home to a clean house, or if your kids are coming up to you and saying, why is our car always dirty all the time? Or why is everything always a mess? And you're saying to yourself, well, I think our house is pretty clean, but you have other people in your home that are saying comments like that to you. It would be really easy, and I totally understand it, getting a little bit defensive and saying, well, you guys are the ones making this mess. It's not me, or we had all these kids. What did you expect was going to happen? Of course it's going to be a mess. That would be a very defensive response. And it's so easy to have that kind of a response for sure. So just grace upon grace. Okay. Grace upon grace. But I do just want to challenge that way of thinking a little bit because when you have people that live with you, it's not just about what you desire for a level of cleanliness in your home. It's also about the other people that live there. And to be a servant of Christ, to serve your family well, we've got to think not just about what our preferences are, but what are the preferences of the people in our home. And for me, with my weaknesses, right, that means for me that what my standard of clean is, which is very, very type A at this point, I've got to relax a little bit because I'm the one that's uptight. I'm the one that's not having enough grace for the crumbs on the floor in the morning. I'm the one that's losing my temper. So this is, on the flip side, my struggle. But there is another aspect of this where sometimes I see people say online on social media, like, my kids are a mess and this is just how it is. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I suppose if nobody's bothered by it in your home, if your kids aren't bothered, your spouse is bothered, everybody's happy, they all feel like it's a generally clean space, this is maybe not an issue for you. But I'm talking more to maybe the women that have gotten that feedback and just pray prayerfully and hopefully graciously and lovingly telling and saying that we need to be thinking about being selfless for the other people in our home. And so do I. Ladies, so do I, because like I said, I'm losing my temper over here and it's small things that don't matter. Okay. So just as bad as that is, right? So we also need to be selfless in the opposite way. If our tendency isn't to be so type A, but to be more type B. And so I pray that I said that in grace.
Yeah,
I really didn't. I really don't want anybody to walk away feeling shame. What I hope is that they get motivated and they're like, okay, I'm not going to use my season of life as an excuse to not take care of my home. Of course, guys, there's grace for this too. Postpartum, okay? Just having a baby, okay? So I'm not saying that people sick in the hospital. There are times and short seasons where it's not possible, okay? Grace upon grace. But in general, let's not use our circumstances as an excuse to drop the ball a little bit, maybe to be a little bit lazy. Let's be thinking about the people in our lives more and about ourselves less. And hey, to me, let's be a little bit more gracious, a little bit more patient. And we need the Holy Spirit to do both of these things, whether you lean type B or you lean type A. You need God's grace, you need his help, and you need his conviction to change.
Yeah, and husbands have an awesome opportunity too. If you're a husband that comes home and the house is chaotic, most likely the wife has had maybe a super stressful day. Here's your opportunity to serve. Just as 1 Peter 3:7-9 says, you husbands in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow I would say that hair of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. Like you husbands, we could talk about the other aspects in that verse later, but it's your opportunity as a husband to be able to serve her and to love her. Maybe she's had a stressful day. You go ahead and go clean up those toys. Bless her in that way. Serve her in that way. And just see how God works through that, because maybe that could be the encouragement to help the wife be like, oh yeah, like I want to serve my husband because he served me first. You know, a lot of times in marriage we have this idea, because this is something I struggle with. I struggle with saying sorry first a lot of the times, but like it really challenges me next time to say sorry first to Sela when she says sorry to me. I'm like, man, that should have been my responsibility, because who knows, maybe my prayers are being hindered because I made my wife stumble or I caused some sort of division between us. You husbands have the awesome opportunity to serve your wife in that way, because next time she'll be like, oh yeah, he served me and loved me. I want to do the same thing to him next time. And so husbands, if you are in this complainted,
Complacent?
not complacent, but like you're complaining in your heart, like, why is this house always so dirty? Take the opportunity to serve your wife, to show her and bestow love on her, and to show the grace to her and serve her in that way, and watch how she responds. Because most likely she's going to respond to, man, my husband loves me. He's exhausted and he's still serving me. Like, oh man, I want to serve him in return. And so that's my encouragement to you men. Take that mantle, take that opportunity, and watch how God shows up.
And I'm smiling when you say that because, guys, did you know, statistically speaking, we always talk about statistics, but they're so important. When you go do the dishes, when you go clean up the toys, that makes your wife more just
Sexual,
ready for
yes.
you.
Yes.
So,
Awesome.
hey, listen, it benefits you too. This is almost the most beautiful thing about a selfless marriage. Not that we have one. We're both flawed human beings needing the grace of the Lord. But when you do serve each other like that, it's like this reciprocal thing where it's this beautiful mesh of selflessness. I know that we don't have that. Obviously, we're sinful people. We have our struggles. But like that's what we want to be striving for, right? Not just also for our spouses, but also for our kids, to be an example to them, to love them, to train them up in the way they should go, so that when they go have their own homes and their own families, that there's a culture in them to serve their wives and clean, or there's a culture in the wife to, maintain the home and keep it clean, because it's a blessing. It's a blessing to the people around you, to your home, to your family. So I think that, yeah, we've covered quite a bit of things today. I just wanted to say, as we end the podcast, just as we always do, it can be so easy when we work on disciplines in our life to think that somehow it equates to righteousness, or that we're in more right standing with God if we work on our weak areas. And it can create a holier than thou attitude, a legalistic mindset. And we have to be so careful when working on these things to understand that we are not saved by what we do. We are saved by grace and grace alone, through the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which is a free gift of salvation that we cannot earn. So even if you work on these weak areas and, I was able to conquer my temper, I pray one day I can conquer my temper. Or if you're someone who's more messy and you want to work on it, or more dirty and you want to work on it, even if you mastered all the weaknesses in your life, that does not mean you are more righteous than the next. What it means is that hopefully you'll grow in maturity, you'll grow closer to Christ, and you'll be a better witness to the world. That is why we work on discipline. But we are saved by grace and grace alone. I pray you guys can hear that every time we do this podcast. It's so important. This is the Good and Faithful Stewart podcast.